The movie Misery is a psychological drama, considered by some as a black comedy. It predominantly features two main characters, writer Paul Sheldon and the mentally disturbed nurse Annie Wilkes. Actress Kathy Bates won several awards for her portrayal of Annie, including the Oscar for Best Actress. The film was produced in 1990 and stars Kathy Bates and James Caan. It was directed by Rob Reiner and scripted by William Goldman. The story begins with famous novelist Paul Sheldon completing his latest manuscript. Following his usual ritual, he sets a cigarette, a match, and a glass of liquor beside him. Paul then heads from Silver Creek, New York, to deliver his new work to his publisher. A blizzard strikes, causing his car to crash in the snow. Moments before the accident, he recalls meeting with his publisher to give her the final installment of his famous Misery series, in which the protagonist, Misery, dies. Despite the publisher's insistence on altering the ending and continuing the series, Paul declines. Though the series was commercially successful and brought him wealth, it stifled his creative spirit. 2 days after the crash, Paul wakes up in a remote house, tended to by a corpulent middle-aged woman named Annie. She claims to have rescued him from the wreck and declares herself his #1 fan, especially of his Misery series. She introduces herself as a nurse and promises to take care of him since his legs are broken and the snowstorm prevents her from taking him to a hospital. Annie asks to read Paul's new manuscript. He agrees, but when she reads a portion of it, she becomes enraged, scaring Paul for the first time. She later apologizes for her outburst and informs him that she contacted his agent to assure her of his safety. The town sheriff receives a report of Paul's disappearance and starts searching but finds his car buried in snow. Meanwhile, Annie tells Paul that Misery was her only source of happiness after her husband's departure. One night, she bursts into Paul's room in a fit of rage, demolishing everything in sight, screaming over Misery's death, then storming out. Paul's attempts to escape prove futile due to his injuries. The following morning, Annie demands Paul burn his new manuscript, threatening to burn him if he doesn't. Fearing for his life, he complies and sets his work ablaze. Annie then provides Paul with a typewriter and papers, ordering him to write a new Misery novel to bring the character back to life. Paul requests better quality paper, exploiting the opportunity to explore the house when Annie goes shopping. During his exploration, he finds a ceramic figurine, photographs of himself, his Misery collection, and a bottle of sleeping pills. The sheriff, convinced of Paul's demise, continues his investigation. Paul starts writing under duress, but an attempt to drug Annie nearly succeeds. He later learns from her old clippings that she's killed multiple children at the hospital where she worked. Paul's legs begin to heal, but Annie discovers his escape attempts and smashes his legs with a sledgehammer, crippling him anew. The sheriff grows suspicious when he sees Annie buying massive amounts of writing paper and goes to interrogate her.